Welcome to today's telecast. I shall be going around the country, Nigeria, what's been happening in the last couple of days. Now, it's left a lot of people breathless, just wondering what is going on with, rumors of coups and arrests and dismissals and so on. Now, my take on this is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has just performed a master stroke of political maneuvering. And what do I mean by that? In one fell swoop, he has just decapitated the jihadist Fulani occupiers who are not native to Nigeria but have been reigning supreme and, land grabbing, trying to Islamize the country by chasing away or killing Christians or whoever is in their way. I know that, there's been a lot of confusion about, as to whether or not a genocide is taking place in Nigeria. Some people have said yes, others have said no. But certainly a genocide is taking place, has been taking place, and it goes way beyond the time frame that people are talking about now, 2019 and so on. I remember these things were going on since right when I was a young girl. Okay, it has just morphed into different typefaces, let's just put it that way. So we've gone from, if people remember the Metatsine riots and all these kind of things that took place, to the Zangon Kataf, riots and the burnings and the killings that went on, and right up to the time of Boko Haram and their various, tentacles that they've spawned like octopuses, running around the country, terrorizing people, trying to drive them away from their land so they can take it over and settle and inhabit that place and call it their own. Just North is a classic, typical example. I was still in university then when, gradually, these people just started to come from nowhere, congregate in one place, and the next thing they started calling themselves Jasawa. And before you know it, the then military administration, I think it was Babangida or one of these people, carved out just North and just, gave it to them just like that. So those are the issues, in that there is a genocide, but beyond the genocide is actually a land grab. These people just want to complete the jihad that their, forefather Usman Dan Fodio started when he left Fes in Morocco and traveled down the Sahel trying to Islamize, all the countries down, perhaps, the whole continent, since 1804. And these things have been going on. They met with strong resistance, and I can tell you for sure that there are great books coming out there telling the history of the Middle Belt, especially the history of the Baju people, where how the colonialists literally came in and just handed people over to these jihadists so that they can deceive us with the Bible in the left hand and a gun in their right hand and a reaping basket, behind their backs. And that's the way the country has been ever since. And they have occupied every position of power you can think of since independence. And they've looted, manipulated, killed, decimated, and subjugated the native Negro Nigerians, including the Hausas. Okay? And of late, some of their leaders, wanting to continue in that jihadist mode, have decided the best way to do it is to clear anyone in their path. And who are the people closest to them in the Middle Belt? Christians, mostly. Of course, there will be a scattering of Muslims here and there, and I'm not saying they don't get killed. They do get killed, but they are not the main target. They are just collaterals of kill Christians, chase them away, take over the land, move on. Kill Christians, chase them away, take over the land, move on. You know, like they did initially until they were stopped in Ilorin, and they retreated, and their tactics since then is to find a place, aggregate themselves like they did in Jos North, get their people in power to carve out that place for them as a place, and then install an emir or whatever, one of these people that wear all these turbans, okay? Install one in a predominantly Christian place. What has Kafanchan got to do with the Emirates? But using the same tactics, they installed an emir of Jama'ah. And I hear they did the same thing in Kajuru. I'm talking about just Southern Kaduna. Southern Kaduna is purely Christian, with a smashing of Muslims, of course. And typically, like any divide and rule type of, hegemony, they do tend to use any tribe where there are sort of minority of Muslims. I won't name the tribes, but they know themselves. They do tend to use them, to rile up trouble against the other major tribes so that they can sneak in, install an emirate, and then subjugate the main tribes into chiefdoms, second-class chief, okay? So that modus operandi has been studied. It's well known. The recent hoo-ha about, genocide in Nigeria, and then the government trying to counter that narrative, I don't think they did a good job, okay? And I've always said it, that the government's media team needs a massive reshuffle, because the people I saw out there trying to counter this narrative that's going on just managed to blunder it the more. They just kill the story because they just fan the flames of confusion. All they needed to say was that yes, there is, and there was, and there's still going to be genocidal attempts at wiping out the Christians. But this government has done the best of all governments combined to try to stop this Fulani non-indigenous jihadists. Simple. That's all they needed to say. Not to go around saying that there's no genocide when, there are pictures, there are satellite images, people can travel to those places. People have relatives who have been killed, who have died, and for someone to come on TV and say, well, there's no genocide. I don't even want to go to Reno Mokri. This is someone who is serpentine. Let's just use that word. Very serpentine. Okay? Nahushka, like a snake. The snake in the Garden of Eden is not like a literally snake. It's just someone who can't be trusted. You know, speak from both sides of his mouth. Yesterday, Tinubu was a bad guy, and then today, trying to capitalize on it and come with some good meaning people. And I really apologize for, thinking they were, I put them in quotes, but, haven't dug out more information about these people. These people have actually been trying to document these genocides that have been going on for years. They've been in the country for years, and it was their God-given mission to popularize or put it out there to the world that people are being killed and nobody's listening. Somebody gets shot, one person in Gaza, and the whole world goes apoplectic. But these are people being buried in mass graves, and they have pictures to show for it, and nobody's talking about it. It took, can you believe the irony that, God sometimes plays on us? It took Bill Maher, an atheist who does not even believe in Christ or any religion, to shine a small light on what's going on in Nigeria and tell these spoon-fed, Gaza protesters to go and get a life, because here is actually where people are being massacred on a daily basis. I'm not saying the Gaza people are not important. They are important. You can rally for them all you want, but this is more serious. This is more deadly. This is more heinous. This is more cruel. This has, a lot of hidden agenda. These people being killed have never said the Muslims are to be killed or they're not free to exist. They've never said that. And yet, these jihadists, these Fulani land-grabbing jihadists, because I'm using those words intentionally, masquerade themselves using the cloak of religion to massacre people who are in their path of dipping the Quran in the Atlantic Sea. And who are these people? They are Christians, mostly. And if the world does not pay attention and stop them, well, the other sides can say, well, it's not our business, they're not coming to our side. All right, by the time they finish with the people in the Middle East, in the Middle Belt, they'll come for you, which they are already doing. Look at Kwara. Look at Kogi State. The tentacles of the jihadists has started to spread right up to the doorstep of the Southwest. Now, I know that there are other factors that are responsible for this sudden interest in insecurity in Nigeria. I'm going to tackle that in a different tape so that I don't conflate the issues. It's important that people know that two things can be right at the same time. There's genocide going on, but it's not this government that's responsible for the genocide or for what's going on. And in fact, it is disgruntled people who perpetuated this genocide, who funded this genocide, who are so upset that they are out of power, that they are now trying to stir up this seeming emergency about insecurity in the country so that they can get Tinubu booted out so they get back on their high horse. You see the rhythm, you see the pattern? so they can get back on their high horse and continue to fund their fellow Fulani jihadists. And Tinubu is saying, hell no. Hence, they had no option but to go plotting a coup. It's not alleged now. There was a coup plot to remove the president and a few other people. And the people earmarked to be killed will be Tinubu, his deputy, to make it look fair and balanced, and Akpabio, okay? And who is the fourth in line? Another Fulani. Get the gist? That was what it was all about. Of course, on the other side of it is that some foreign powers who have been trying to get their hands on our rare earth minerals have capitalized on the confusion to sow more seeds of discord. I am so glad that Tinubu is the president at this time, because no other person will have been able to decapitate these jihadist Fulani marauders from Morocco. Is it Obi? Obi that has already capitulated to them by saying, oh, I'm just going to do 4 years and I'll give it back to you, but please just help me. I just want to go down as a president. I'll do 4 years. Who says that? Who says blinking that in a democracy? So I think the rest of Nigeria should just wise up to what is going on. Like, you know, Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, we are at a turning point Nigeria. We should support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to completely decapitate this caliphate. These foreign non-Nigerians. I'm not saying he should kill them. Just take the power back from them and give it to indigenous Nigerians. That's all. Autumn. Finished. I don't like bloodshed. I don't want bloodshed. I don't want them killed. Let them stay wherever they are. But this land grabbing, you know, attempt to Islamize everywhere. Have you noticed that, you know, they'll just infiltrate a Christian place? You know, 5, 6, 10. The next thing you know, there'll be 20 of them, all living along the main drag of whichever town it is. And before you know it, they've gotten funding from their funders. They will build a mosque that can seat like 10,000 for 10 people. And they will be making noise with that, their call to prayers. So any, you know, visitor passing through that town will just imagine or think it's a Muslim town. But just step laterally, both sides, literally just 50 meters, and you will meet the indigenous people who often are Christians, okay? But the government will legitimize these people, make them take over markets, you know, make them dominate the commerce of that place, develop that strip that's, you know, along the road and where they live, just like 50 meters within, and then abandon the rest of the indigenous locals. So Nigerians, wake up. Tinubu has just done us a great big favor. For the first time, there is no single Fulani in the military hierarchy, and it's only Tinubu that could have achieved that. Of course, the service chiefs that were relieved of their posts, they did their very best. But I hope that, you know, they are taking this in good faith. Not that Tinubu doesn't trust them. I don't have his ears. I'm just guessing. But he needed to do what he needed to do to send a message to these marauding, killing, jihadist, caliphate Fulanis. God bless Nigeria. And we thank the service chiefs that are retiring for their service to the country. May God bless them in their subsequent ventures, and we hope that they will continue to contribute to the security of the country in whatever capacity, and to assist with nation building, which the previous Fulani infested military was not able to do. So thank you, gentlemen, for your service to the country, and thank you, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for this master stroke of a political maneuver. Thank you.